rise and shine. Coffee's brewing, feeling fine. News is out and on the air. Shizzy whiz nuts wild, but we don't care. Morning whiz and coffee. Talk the news, he's a tease. Laugh it off, we're on the go. Shizzy whiz nuts, start the show. Let's go. Spinning in the breeze, stupid jokes, he's such a tease. Sip the Java with a smile. Pants are off, but stay a while. Morning whiz and coffee. Talk the news, he's a tease. Laugh it off, we're on the go. Shizzy whiz, let's start the show. Let's go. Headlines spinning in the breeze. Stupid jokes, he's such a tease. Sip the Java, wear a smile. Pants are off, but stay a while. Morning whiz and coffee. Talk the news, he's a tease. Laugh it off, we're on the go. Shizzy whiz, let's start the show. Let's go. Serious is overrated. Every day we're caffeinated. Talk the town, but in a jest. Morning whiz is always best. Clock is ticking, time to run. Morning show's a load of fun. Grab your mug, don't spill a drop. Laugh your ass off till you pop. Clock is ticking, time to run. Morning show's a load of fun. Grab your mug, don't spill a drop. Laugh your ass off till you pop.
Oh my god, Shizzy breaks Larry. Shizzy broke Larry.
Oh, yeah, indeed. Oh, man, how are you guys doing today? What BS is Shizzy gonna give for being late? There's no excuse for being late. I wasn't paying any attention. I'm so bad at that. Sister Sal, how are you doing? Good morning, young lady. It's so good to see you, man. Oh man, do we have some morning news for you? Oh, loved last night. I had such a blast with Yamaha, you guys. Oh boy, yeah, it's gonna be another crazy day. You can feel it coming. It is getting so close. Good morning. It is getting so close to the Wednesday. Shaka's gonna have to file something by tomorrow at noon. Ooh, you guys ready? I'm sure it's going to be interesting. Oh, music needs to dance. Yeah, well, you can dance if you want to. You can leave your friends because if you don't dance, oh, sorry. Here we go this morning. Stay away, Joe. The Democrat Party's going through a period of disarray and confusion that hasn't experienced since it lost the Civil War. But there's one thing its top dogs appear to be united about. Oh, well, okay, two things. One is that men can become women and ought to be allowed to dominate women's sports. And the other is that old Joe Biden must decidedly not the guy to lead them out of their current morass. Much as he would like to be, old Joe, who is 82 now, has to face the unpleasant reality. Not only was he never really president, but he will never really be a key figure in the party of green hair anymore either. It's kind of amazing that I never thought otherwise. Maybe a couple of months to rest and relaxation at his taxpayer-funded, walled Delaware beach house have done him a world of good. Now he is tanned, rested, ready to get back into the fray. Whatever he or his handlers may be thinking, old Joe attended the Broadway opening of Othello on Sunday. As Matt Margolis noted, the Biden's first public outing comes mere days after reports surfaced that Biden wants to return to the political arena to help Democrats raise money, and nobody in the party, not even his former aides, is happy about it. Now, why should they be? The Democrats may be totally insane, but they aren't suicidal. They may want the country to commit national suicide, but that with the open borders and millions of unvetted illegals streaming in, but the party must go on. Fox News reported on Monday that a national Democrat strategist who's close to the 24 Biden campaign said it defies belief that the man who cost the Democrat Party the White House, the Senate, and the House believes that he's going to be the Democrat Party savior. But this is also the same person who tried to convince America that he wasn't too old to continue as president of the United States. And that is certainly true, but old Joe is never wanted for kaputs. I think that's right. I'm not Jewish, so I can't say these words right. The Yiddish is off. And the Democrats have never wanted for delusions. Their addiction to fantasy doesn't extend solely to the transgender madness. John McNeil, whom Fox identifies as a longtime Democrat consultant, said President Biden did a lot of really remarkable things for this country. I'm sure there's still some love left for him. Biden did a lot of remarkably great things for the country. Which ones do you think are the greatest, John? Galloping inflation, the open borders, skyrocketing crime in our major cities, war in Ukraine, war in Gaza, the catastrophically botched withdrawal from Afghanistan. By golly, we got to get Biden's great stone head on Mount Rushmore. After all, oh, Joe isn't using it anymore. And then there's this bit about how there must be some love left for old Joe. Was there any love for old Joe? We weren't allowed to say it for several years because Biden and his henchmen had so much love for the freedom of speech, but it's obvious now that the 2020 election was full of irregularities. One glaring and immediate example of this is that 3 million voters vanished and didn't turn out for 2024 after getting old Joe over the finish line 4 years before. Trump's vote total increased by 3 million from 2020 to 2024, while 6 million people who voted for Joe Biden declined to vote for Camel Toe. Nothing to see here. Move along. But now that we enjoy a modicum of free speech again, we can ask whether Biden really won that 2020. That is, was he ever really loved? And after all his administration made of such hash of things, can it really be said that anyone is longing for the good old days of the Biden regime? Of course, there's no storage blinkers leftists out there, no shortage of blinker leftists out there with who long for socialism, impoverishment, slavery, so they have an undying love for anyone with a D behind his or her name. Other than those people, however, no one is really glad to see old Joe back. And those same people would be glad to see Stalin back if he started spouting platitudes about diversity, equity, and inclusion. Even most Democrats have had their fill of the clownish corruptors of the Biden crime family. The message is thus clear. Joe Chiazzo, the veteran Democrat strategist who served in the 2016 and 2020 presidential campaign of Senator Bernie Sanders, said, "There's an appetite for message anchored in economic populism wrapped in a desire for a broad system change following November's results. It is more than fair to say that folks are looking towards the future. In other words, stay away, Joe." Good morning, Starzy. How you doing? Whoa, morning, a gold star to start off your birthday day. Well, I will dig one right off of the old sheet of paper here to give you that nice gold star. Happy birthday. Well, you know what we've got for you. No, we've got for you, Starzy. We've got a nice little tune for you. How's that? We will make this wonderful for you. How about this? We'll give you that happy birthday that you've been really, really wanting. If I've got it here. I do not have it on here. Doggone it. Let's see if I've got it elsewhere. Because sometimes I keep these things in the back of my mind. Let me see if I've got the actual song here. I'm pretty sure that I do. Ah, yes, here we go. For you. Yes. Yes, happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, Starzy. Happy birthday. Happy birthday to you. Everybody. Once again. A little more drunk. There we go. Happy birthday, Starzy. I'm glad to see that you're doing well. Yes. And then, of course, we got Mel Clamp that comes in and says, slap a super sticker on me and make it, oh, so delicious. Thank you, Mel Clamp. I appreciate you. I've got you right here. Oh, yeah, we're filling this thing up. I mean, look at the face of this thing. It is turned into one big, giant one. I mean, to hell with the 5-star general. I've got it much better. Happy birthday. Happy birthday. Really, it is wonderful to see you here. What a day. What a day. Let me see if I can get back to where I was. There we go. I shall find it here. There we go. All right. Got my background back. Doggone it. It is wonderful. How about we give you just
nice.
Yeah, baby. Oh my, oh my. Well, you wouldn't believe this, but it is the morning briefing time. Here we go. This is always from Stephen Cruzier. Morning briefing 2024 big message. The kids are all right. Happy Tuesday. It is countless articles have been written in the past couple of months, some of them by Stephen Cruzier about the sorry state of the Democrat Party here in the year of our Lord 2025. It's not just that they lost to the man who haunted their dreams and every waking moment. It's how they lost. Coming to grips with that is at the heart of their confusion. In my lifetime, Democrats have relied on a few voting blocks to get them by in every election, like the Black voters, Latino voters, union workers, and much talked about youth vote. Dems don't see people, they see electoral demographics. They talk a good game, pretending that they care about minorities, workers, and young people, and their grandiose promises to all of them worked for a very long time. Last year's presidential election changed a lot of that. Trump peeled off voters who the Democrats had taken for granted for decades. Now, Stephen Cruzier's written for years that the Democratic elites live in fear of minority voters. Wait, man. There we go. Live in fear of minority voters waking up and realizing that they've been used. It didn't happen in mass in 2024, but it was noticeable. Even more noticeable was how many of those voters were young. The youth vote was a bit of a political unicorn for a long time. It was much sought after, but rarely materialized in numbers that would move the needle. And that's changing now. Young men in particular are losing interest in the Democrats. Yesterday, Scott wrote a detailed breakdown of just how the Dems have been pushing young American men away. He also contrasted how the Donald Trump version of the GOP appeals to them. Meanwhile, consider the MAGA pitch to men. You've got Donald Trump at UFC events, backslapping the baddest mother bleepers on the planet. When Trump was pierced by a bullet, he rose to his feet, raised his fist to the heavens, and yelled, fight, fight, fight. And today, through Doge and executive orders, he's removing the obstacles, the regulations, the waste, and overhead that made life tougher for young men. That's quite a difference from the party of Dylan Mulvaney and Rachel Levine, as Scott points out in his post. It's pretty easy to figure out why young males are voting Republican, but the Democrats and their apologists are struggling with the obvious. Chris wrote a post about some polling that offers more insights into the left to right migration of young voters. There's a lot to chew on there, but this really stood out to me. Young voters say their personal experiences, family members, and faith are most influential in determining their views on political issues, noted Brown. Among young conservatives, 19% said their religious beliefs were that they listened to most, compared to just 3% of liberals. despite claims that those who shifted to the right in 2024 were merely brainwashed by the likes of Ben Shapiro or Joe Rogan. It was instead a conscious choice informed by their own experiences, families, and religion. The youngins aren't voting blind, it would seem. They may even be more thoughtful than their elders. It's encouraging that their greater engagement has them moving rightward. I heard and saw a lot, and I mean a lot, of antecedent evidence about the youth of America moving to Trump and the Republicans last year. When he came to Tucson for a rally in September, the crowd was filled with university-age kids whose enthusiasm gave the appearance rock concert energy. It was over 100 degrees, and they were cheerfully standing in line and acting like they were waiting to get into a party of the year. Now it's up to the GOP to figure out how to keep the young voters it has and bring even more over to the right side. The way that President Trump and his administration are delivering on campaign promises will work wonders on achieving both objectives, no doubt. But it's a great comfort knowing that the Democrats' public education, indoctrination efforts, and myriad attempts to buy the youth vote with taxpayer-funded freebies aren't working. If we can just keep the Dems' commie fingers off the Constitution for a long time, the future of the Republic looks bright indeed. And not everything is bad. Nature is amazing.
I work all night.
Look at that. Met a baby elephant on the beach. Look at that. Look at that. Just rolling around in the sand, having a good old time. Aw. Isn't that cute? You gotta have a baby elephant at some point. Good to see you, Slug. Welcome, welcome, welcome. It is wonderful to see you. Hey, Jay Hip. Good morning, good morning, good morning. Shizzy, I see you're still kissing salamanders. It's quite interesting given how many of those salamanders are also pigeons. How many pigeons have you passionately kissed? I don't think any of them. That's better than the bird flu, Steve. Oh, cuteness. Me, I would have take that out and start again. Well, and it also goes to show that how much that the Democrats don't really understand. They really don't understand things like this. They don't seem to understand, and whenever you see this, I will say it's going to be, this one is for Slug. I'll just say that this one here is for Slug. This next one is. Here we go. I know that Slug really enjoys this. Okay, this is for you, Slug.
Some of the people in my comments keep telling me that it's gay to date men, but I'm a trans girl. So it's not gay for me to date men. Actually, it means I'm straight. Checkmate.
There you go. That's for you. There's your new date right there. Enjoy, Slug. Oh, I love doing that. I love doing that. Ah, yes. Good morning, Rosalind. Oh, it is good to see you, Rosalind. I hope you're having a good morning. I hope you're having a great morning, actually. Yes. Pigeons are sky rats. Oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. Yes. Well, I will say that Bill Maher says California needs an Elon Musk, but there's one little catch. Bill Maher has the red pill on his tongue and a glass of water in his hand, but the spoiler is that he's too blue to take it. Friday's Real Time with Bill Maher had another one of those hosts. Many just go on and take the red pill moments as Maher called for an Elon Musk to save California and the Democrats' presidential hopes. Maher wants the impossible, just not for the reasons he thinks. Reasons plural, actually. Two of them. Stick a pin in that thought. I'll get back to that momentarily. During his sit-down with Andrew Sullivan and Ezra Klein, Maurer made the problem with California's politics quite personal. The state has almost 400,000 regulations. I just put in a new roof because of the fire. I thought, oh, let's get a roof that's not going to burn up. 2 inspections. Why are you inspecting my roof? It's my effing roof. If it falls on me, that's my problem. Maurer continued, we're taxed more than any other state. People are leaving these kinds of states for places where they feel the heavy breath of the government on them. It's just not that hard for Democrats to understand this, but they seem incapable of doing anything about it. He also worries, and he's right to, about the electoral college changes, put the serious crimp on Dem hopes to win the White House during the entire 2030s. I wrote about that on Friday, and if Harris Walz had run on the 2032 map, they could have swept the blue wall swing states that Trump won in 2024, Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, and still lost the election, 270 to 268. On the 2032 map, as it's shaping up, the Harris-Walz best case scenario would be a 259, 279 loss. No wonder Bill Maher's in such a state about people fleeing his state. Staunching that flow requires 2 things that Democrats typically only pay lip service to, if that, cutting taxes and regulation. That's where we need something like Doge comes in. We need an Elon Musk who would do to California what he's doing to the government in the same way, Maurer said. But here's the rub. Maurer wants the impossible. And another thing, many of my conservative friends keep expecting that someday Maurer will take the red pill, but as my friend Stephen Cruzier and I have discussed on 5 o'clock somewhere, it's never going to happen. Maurer is a committed lefty. It's just that Maurer is that rarest of creatures, one that belongs on the protected species list of relatively sane lefty. The first of the 2 problems I mentioned earlier is Maurer's nonsense about doing what Musk does in a sane way. You have to be crazy to take on the Goliath state. Musk is just the right kind of crazy and insulated by endless wealth and don't give a F attitude. To try, California needs a Musk, but there's only the Musk. While Musk might be crazy, he truly is in the best possible way. He isn't stupid. Why would he risk everything again to save a party that did literally the little guy, with the funny mustache meme to him? The second reason is that reforming the government is a bit like joining a 12-step recovery program. The first step is admitting you have a problem, that your government has become unmanageable. Maurer can't put on a new roof on his house without jumping through multiple hoops, and that's the problem. But Klein told Maurer the personality type of the left is bureaucratic, and you can't govern if you need this obsessed with the process. But Klein went on to add, I want regulation. I want good regulations that achieve the goal. Sorry, Bill, Ezra. But for the progressive busybodies, unmanageability is the entire point. Before California changes, it has to want to change. But any alcoholic can tell you that won't happen until they've hit bottom. As far as California has fallen, the state still has a long way to go, and not a single Elon Musk is in sight. Shizzy, not Whiz, not that one. Welcome back, Shizzy. Hope you enjoyed your vacay. So good to see you. I hope that you're having a wonderful morning, everybody. It is, hit that like. If you're not subscribe to it. We're gonna give you guys a special treat today, just so you guys know. We will be, whenever we finish up here today, we're gonna be going and harassing somebody on their stream. And you'll just have to wait and see who it's going to be. It's going to be a good time. You're going to have a blast. just you wait. Hey, Rosalind. Oh my gosh, Zach, pajamas or scrunchy socks. Oh yeah, I like that. Thank you very much. I appreciate you. Yeah, it is good to be back. Good morning, Captain Kern. Good morning. Furniture industry is moving from Canada to North Carolina this month. Well, that sounds good. I don't know if North Carolina is going to be much better, but welcome. It's and this is what I try to explain, to my friends in Tennessee is, they get this, is that you've got all of these people that move from California to Tennessee to Florida, and they're moving out of the blue states to go to the red states because the taxes are much better. They got a little bit more freedom. And the thing is they want to bring the same policies along with them that got California tanked in the first place. They're bringing in their gender studies, and there's no stopping them. It gets worse and worse each time. I mean, here's the thing. Check out the hot mom, and the hot mom will explain it best. How's that? We'll give it to the hot mom here.
Hi, I'm Kaylee Weichbrot. I'm a mom of 2 in Fairfax County. This is my oldest. And my husband and I have a difficult decision to make this fall as he is approaching preschool age, and we are faced with the decision of whether or not we are going to put our child in public school system where Fairfax County has decided to move forward with instituting gender studies in elementary school. Despite having done a study group, a focus group in the community to see if parents even wanted this. And when parents said no, the board voted 16-0 and said we're moving forward anyways. This shows clearly that they see parents not as partners, but as an obstacle for their agenda. And I have a really hard time looking at him and going, here, I'm just gonna give you over to people who do not want to partner with me in how you're going to be raised. School and education is a huge part of a child's life. And early childhood is supposed to be filled with exploration and creativity and fun, not debating issues that are for adults to handle. These kinds of topics should be introduced sensitively and by parents who are raising their children with their values, not with an ideology passed down from the top.
Nice. And that right there was the hot mom take of the day. Yeah, damn near wrecked Texas. Yeah, that's true. That is absolutely true. And we see it on a regular. Yeah, they haven't adjusted to Tennessee mentality from local Facebook pages. The transplant northerners are doing better. Just my opinion. That's true. Yeah. Arizona used to be solid red. Now it's purple. And that's because a lot of people moved out of California. I mean, they're looking for something a little bit better and they're having a hard time finding it. And it makes sense that people are getting a little frustrated with it. And, it's sad to see. Good morning, Ammo's girl. Good to see you. Yeah, Colorado is a lost cause. It doesn't have to be. That's the thing. It doesn't have to be. You have to remember the reason why it ends up turning into such a lost cause is because you've got folks that are coming in and people aren't standing up to them. Instead, they're just packing their bags and leaving. And as people get up and leave, oh, SB 003. I don't know what that one is. I don't know what SB 003 is. I'll have to look it up. If they like Democrats to have total control, they need to go back to California, leave the US F alone. We encourage West Coast. Yes, we encourage all West Coast folks to move to Memphis. See, Ballstorm knows what I'm talking about. And it is I love that. They're still wanting a tornado shelter. What do they do, etc. I've got one. Yeah, the Chicago public school teachers are some of the highest paid in the nation, but only 18% of grade schoolers read at the level they're supposed to. And I mean, oh God, geez, I'm trying to think. Was this before I got married? We were at a friend's house one night, and there was a elementary school teacher there, and she had just left elementary school and was teaching, I believe, middle school. And she was so disheartened because the kids that she was teaching were 2 years younger than where she moved into middle school. And these kids that were coming into middle school, they couldn't read, they couldn't write, they didn't know an adjective, a verb, a noun. They could barely write their names, and they were still passed into the next class. And she was left with this idea of, you know, I don't want to have idiots in my class. And so she would fail them until they caught up. And then she got fired from her job because the goal is more of churning the money out. You have to push those kids through to the next class. Why are you not pushing these kids through? We got more kids coming behind. We can't leave them behind. And her response was, if they're going to fail, these kids on this level, and they just pass them up through the ranks, and by the time they leave high school, they're more ignorant than whenever they came in. What's the point of being a teacher? She was happy to leave that job and not continue on there anymore. I mean, why would you want to? Why would you want to? Oh, yes. The bureaucrats don't understand the Trump-Musk relationships. Hmm. One of my favorite words that became popular during the early days of social media is wish casting, which means confusing one's fantasy for an outcome with what's likely to happen. I don't know if the word was in use back in the olden times, but it was made for the era when liberals freely barfed up every fact-free thought that pops into their heads. A popular bit of wish casting making that social media rounds these days is the leftist fever dream that President Trump and Elon Musk will inevitably have a personality clash and a falling out as a result of it. It's obviously not out of the realm of possibility. People who work closely together in high intensity situations butt heads all the time, but there's also the fact that Trump 45 administration had a lot of turnover. There's a few reasons I don't think that Trump-Musk juggernaut is in danger of being stopped by a permanent rift, however. The first one I've written about a lot. President Trump learned from the chaos of his first term, and his second go-around is a completely different political machine. Fortunately, the floundering Democrat Party hasn't figured that out yet and is still battling Trump as if it were 2017 and its media noise provocation apparatus was still working. We'll let them struggle with that one for a while. Reason number two is something I've been discussing with conservative friends and colleagues. President Trump is on a mission to be a transformative leader, and the reason number one is greatly aiding that. While the clinically insane Democrats are caterwauling about him suspending the Constitution and seeking a third term, Trump is quite obviously working like a man who knows precisely what he wants to do and is aware that he has a limited amount of time in which to do it. He's spending his political capital very, very wisely. And what eludes Trump's opposition is the nature of the president's relationship with Elon Musk, because it's not one of mere political convenience. It's a concept that is foreign to the lifers of the Democrat Party. Dem politicians get into office early and hang around until about an hour before rigor mortis sets in. Senate Minority Leader Charles Schumer, who was first elected to public office half a century ago, is a prime example. Gerald Ford was president when the young Chuckster first became a New York State assemblyman. The private sector is practically science fiction to people like him. Trump and Musk aren't just close because they both occupy the rarefied air of the world of billionaires, which no doubt plays a huge part in their friendship. Self-made billionaires tend to be visionaries who are given to dreaming big. President Trump came into his second term with one heck of a dream about overhauling the monstrosity that we call the bloated federal bureaucracy. Because of the aforementioned lessons learned from his first stint in the Oval Office, he knew that the dream couldn't be realized with the help of people who were inside the system. He wanted to transform that. Enter Elon Musk, one of the few people President Trump knows who is a lot wealthier than he is. Another bonding point is, most importantly, a man free of swamp taint. The very idea of the Department of Government Efficacy, or DOGE, was never going to work with a politician or a bureaucrat in charge. This may be Trump's second term, but he is still a DC outsider, which is just fine by him. It's also that what the country needs. In Elon Musk, he has a kindred spirit, business spirit, who also doesn't care if he's being spoken well of at happy hour by the beltway hobnobs. The two are enjoying the ultimate insider access while being motivated by a combination of the classic outsider chip on the shoulder and an overwhelming love for what they're doing. Wish cast all you want, Democrats. These two are going to be just fine. Fence around Colorado? No, I love the Rockies. Yeah, the Rockies are awesome. Emote stocked with muskie gators in the moat. Yeah, that would be pretty awesome. That would be pretty awesome. And I'm gonna show you this next one and let you guys decide.
Let me just add to that, and thank you. We just had a wonderful cabinet meeting, all aligned on certainly the effort to realign the government. But even at the U.S. Department of Agriculture, we've canceled a $300,000 contract educating on food justice for queer and transgender farmers in San Francisco. A similar contract we canceled in New York, again educating transgender and queer farmers on food justice and food equality. I'm not even sure what that means, but apparently the last administration wanted to put our taxpayer dollars towards that.
It has to do with eggplants. That's what it is. It's eggplants.
We canceled a $600,000 contract out of Louisiana that was studying the menstrual cycles of transgender men, a $600,000 contract. We canceled another contract out of a university in the middle of the country that focused on getting more diversity, equity, and inclusion into our pest management industry. Again, these are nonsensical. It makes zero sense to use taxpayer dollars to fund these. I know these are just a few examples of the hundreds and hundreds that we have found.
Yeah. That food justice, what the F? Well, that's grow their own eggplant. Yeah. If you could grow your own eggplant, I'm sure that they would be all for it. I'm positive that they would do that. Yeah, it gets really ridiculous whenever you start digging into how bad it is in the government, and you don't realize it because you're not paying attention to it. She needs to protect the Amish. Yeah. I agree. Bless our farmers. Damn, I don't care what their preferences are, but they need to be allowed to farm, not told what to plant. Well, that can also be a problem. And I'll sort of explain it this way. If, for example, you find out that, corn is going to sell at, $6,000 a pound, as compared to wheat that's going to sell at $100 a pound. Which one would you grow? And then you end up with a surplus of corn that you've got nothing to do with, that there's just an overabundance of it, which would decrease the price of corn down to where it's not sustainable, and then you don't have enough wheat. So that's where it becomes a little bit of a problem. So I mean, do I have the answer? No, but these are the kinds of things that you could easily run into. Sweet Law says I can steal some of Volstrom's hot wings. Food justice. So those are the problems that you run into. I mean, it's something that I found out while traveling abroad, and not that kind of broad, but going to France, for example. They have it set up where if you're a farmer, and not that I agree with this, but if you're a farmer, you're allowed to grow certain crops. So you actually have to apply for it. During the beginning of the Ukraine war, I found out that France gets a lot of their lemon, or not lemon, but their mustard seed from Ukraine, which, because of the war, they didn't have enough mustard seed coming in. And so they were running shortages on it. So what they started to do was give incentives for people to grow more mustard seed, but also keeping it on a level that doesn't make everybody out there just growing all of that. So I mean, there is ways that these things can be done, and is there any good answer for that? No, but I mean, we could feed our country with the amount of land that we have. You could easily be feeding your cattle a little bit better food if, for example, you weren't, kneecapped on what you could or couldn't feed them. And speaking of feeding them, it is time to feed the beast. I'm going to go grab some more coffee, and I'm going to give you guys a nice little otter swimming around. I'll see you guys in 3 minutes and 11 seconds. Grab yourself a cup of coffee, grab some Joe. Here.
Shizzy, when it's chat we thrive, where Shizzy does dance and memes arrive. No quiet moments, no dull night. We laugh in funny sight. Oh, Shizzy's crowd, you're Shizzy, when it's chat we thrive, where Shizzy does dance and memes arrive. No quiet moments, no dull night. We laugh in funny sight. Oh, Shizzy's crowd, you're wild and true, with crazy gifts and jokes that flew. We're living pixels in the stream, a digital dream, a shared daydream. From shoutouts to those random screams, to inside jokes and endless memes. We talk and Shizzy, when it's chat we thrive, where Shizzy does dance and memes arrive. No quiet moments, no dull night. We laugh in funny sight. Oh, Shizzy's crowd, you're wild and true, with crazy gifts and jokes that flew. We're living pixels in the stream, a digital dream, a shared daydream. From shoutouts to those random screams, and inside jokes and endless memes. In Shizzy, when it's chat we thrive, where Shizzy does dance and memes arrive. No quiet moments, no dull night. We laugh in funny sight. Oh, Shizzy's crowd, you're wild and true, with crazy gifts and jokes that flew. We're living pixels in the stream, a digital dream, a shared daydream. From shoutouts to those random screams, and inside jokes and endless memes. We type our hearts, we spam the love. Our chat rooms like a lit up club. Our chat rooms like a lit up club. Oh, Shizzy's crowd, you're wild and true, with crazy gifts and jokes that flew. We're living pixels in the stream, a digital dream, a shared daydream. Ooh, yeah, we come together night and day. We laugh, we play in our own way. A family in a cyberspace, loving hearts in this virtual place. Oh, Shizzy's crowd, you're wild and true, with crazy gifts and jokes that flew. We're living pixels in the stream, a digital dream, a shared daydream.
Oh yeah. I don't know what the hell happened. I was taking out my earbud, and all of a sudden it like paused everything. I was like, that shouldn't have happened. Oh, well, oh well, oh well. We do have the party of girls and dudes in dresses. How the Democrats lost a generation of men. PJ media readers, of course, heard about it first, and we'll go over this today. The comprehensive breakdown of the Camel Toe Harris autopsy last week. It took the rest of the media a few days to catch up, but it's a hell of a story, perhaps the most important story in all of politics. If you don't know the data, then you really don't know why Trump won. All you have are biases, guesses, and opinions. New York Times columnist as the decline is a liberal. He's very open about his political beliefs. He worked on the Howard Dean campaign and was a political commentator for MSNBC. On Klein's podcast, he recently interviewed David Shore, the head of the data science at Blue Rose Research, a Democrat polling firm that conducted the Harris autopsy. Originally, his interview didn't receive widespread coverage. When other outlets such as Fox News discovered a few days later, outside interest began to heat up. And it's good. It was a fascinating conversation, chock full of info the GOP can exploit. We'll begin with the part that shocked Ezra Klein. I find this part of the chart shocking. I sometimes talk about narrative violations, and if we knew anything about Donald Trump 8 years ago, it was that young people didn't like him, and Republicans had been throwing away young people for generations in order to run up their margins among seniors. But if you look at this chart, 75-year-old white men supported camel toe Harris at a significantly higher rate than 20-year-old white men. This chart shocks me, emphasis added. Equally shocking was the explanation of the pro-Democrat data scientist. I agree. To me, the scariest chart is the entire presentation. Again, something I'm very surprised by. At the bottom, we have age, and at the top, we have a gender gap and support for camel toe Harris comparing men and women. What you can see is that for voters over 30, the gender gap was fairly stable at around 10%. This is roughly where it's been in American politics. What's crazy is that you look at people under the age of 30, the gender gap has exploded. 18-year-old men were 23% points more likely to support Donald Trump than 18-year-old women, which was just completely unprecedented in American politics. Okay, the data pinpoints a mass exodus of young men from the Democrat Party, maybe because they started getting to the point where it's just like, I need to be a man, not a little girl. It's absolutely 100% happening. It seems to indicate a large-scale cultural shift. Still, the data scientists at the New York Times writer were grasping at straws to determine the reason. I think it's too early to say exactly what the cause is. What's interesting, though, is that this is happening in other countries as well. Obviously, different countries have different political systems, but I've seen similar patterns in Canada, the UK, and Norway. There's a lot of research to do here, but it's still very striking. It's similar to how a lot of people talk about the Democrat young men problem and still somehow underrated because the actual numbers are just worse than people think. I don't think it's just inflation or backlash against the incumbent governments, though I'm sure that's part of the story too. It's because they just don't get it. When liberals fail to find a smoking gun, they bundle their theories together and throw them at a wall, hoping something will stick. Maybe it was Shakoof or the Me Too backlash or those dastardly influencers on the so-called manosphere. Klein. I feel like the story you're implying is to believe that there's a polarization of young men and women driven by young men who are in high school and online during the coof. It was around the time when Me Too was cresting. Jordan Peterson became a big figure and Andrew Tate was rising. You have now what's called the manosphere. But there's a sense of Democrat Party is becoming much more pro-women party and in some sort of ways sort of anti-young men, and that in turn has a huge effect on young men's political opinions. Sure. Or I want to stress that this seems to be a global phenomenon. I don't want to overcenter the specific things the Democrat Party is doing, but rather focus on broader cultural shifts. Peterson and Tate are global figures. Exactly. I agree with that. We're in the midst of a big cultural change, and I think that people are really underestimating. If you look at the Zoomers, there's really interesting ways that you're different on data. They're more likely than previous generations to say that making money is extremely important to them. If you look at their psychographic data, they have a lot higher levels of psychometric neuroticism and anxiety than people before them. If I were to speculate, I'd say phones and social medias have a lot to do with this. How they translate into partisan politics depends on what the parties do, but I think it's a big shift. Klein and Shore are misdiagnosing the problem. They're confusing the ailment with the alleged solution. The digital popularity of Jordan Peterson and Andrew Tate didn't drive young men from the Democrat Party. Even if Peterson and Tate were ultra-feminist pro-Harris activists, Donald Trump would have won by the exact same margins. Peterson and Tate are preaching to young men who are already disaffected. Klein and Shore have it backwards. It'd be like someone noticing a sales link between Band-Aids and kids getting hurt and then assuming that if you got rid of Band-Aids, there would be fewer injuries. The truth is, people aren't that complicated. We move towards pleasure and away from pain. We want to be around people who like us, value us, and believe in us. But the Democrats don't believe in young men. Instead, they believe all women. By contrast, young men are perceived as potential rapists, racists, predators, bigots right out of the womb. Girls are naturally good. Boys must be re-educated not to be so boyish, especially in government-run schools, because if you haven't noticed, young men are struggling compared to women. Men are less likely to go to college and more likely to go to jail. They make less money, do worse academically, and have fewer opportunities. The Republicans didn't create this. It was purely the handiwork of Democrats. Meanwhile, consider the MAGA pitch to men. You've got Donald Trump at UFC events, backslapping the baddest motherfuckers on the planet, and Trump was pierced by a bullet, and he got up and said, fight, fight, fight. Liberals want easy answers. That young men were tricked by influencers like Andrew Tate and Joe Rogan, or maybe a small tweak in the TikTok algorithm will bring the boys back to the Democrat Party. Come on, Silicon Valley, save us. That's unlikely. Trump's attitude, panache, and the flair for the drama helped seal the deal, but Trump was just a small reason why so many men migrated to MAGA. He absolutely helped, but it wasn't all him. Democrat Party policies, failures, condescension were what drove young men away. And it's not a messaging problem, it's a reality problem. You can't keep asking someone to touch a hot stove because eventually he'll turn to stay the hell away. It burns. Until Democrats stop burning men, they'll continue to be the party of girls and men in dresses. Trump welcomed him after the Democrats pushed him out. But if Dems hadn't pushed him out, there would be no one to welcome in. Once again, the Democrats have put the donkey ahead of the cart. All right, Elka, you have a wonderful day. Appearing soon on the You Can't Live Without My Crap, Shizzy Whiz Nut Store, North Pole, Nipple Armor, and Crystal Mushrooms while supplies. If you don't see them, you were too slow. Oh, I had so much fun last night with Yamaha. If you didn't see it, check out the songs that I've done for them. But here is what drove that in the first place. The Camel Toe Harris campaign autopsy. The more people vote, the better Republicans do. I could never be a doctor, no offense, but I don't want to be around most of y'all when you're healthy and well. Being at your beck and call when you're sick, disgusting, and hacking up phlegm has no appeal whatsoever. But if I had to be a doctor, I'd prefer to be an autopsy doctor. Talk about pressure-free job. What's the worst that could happen? You never have to deliver bad news to a grieving widow. Nobody cares if you have a lousy bedside manners, and best of all, who knows what goodies you might find in your patient's pockets. A political autopsy is eerily similar to a medical one, complete with the post-mortem graft. The organization conducting the autopsy almost always wants more work from the client. Cha-ching. So an awful lot of conclusions will dovetail nicely with the services it's trying to upsell. I'm not saying it's doing anything unethical. Sometimes it's just how it views the world. Either way, if you hire a firm that specializes in PR to conduct your autopsy, it'll probably point to PR problems. If it specializes in grassroots activism, it'll hone in on that. It's an important caveat to keep in mind because these analytical, data-driven autopsies are often less empirical and more artistic, reflecting the biases and profit models of the physician more so than the patient. Blue Rose Research, a pro-Democrat firm, was tasked with conducting the Camel Toe Harris 24 campaign autopsy. Clearly, they worked really hard on it. They interviewed 26 million voters, examined the polling data, and synthesized the results. During the campaign, Blue Rose Research partnered with Future Forward, Camel Toe's largest PAC. It's fascinating postmortem. It reveals opportunities, vulnerabilities, and liabilities for both parties. First, it demonstrates the enduring power of mainstream media. The Republicans didn't win in 24 because we got better media coverage, but because fewer people watched the media. Consider the most engaged people swung towards Democrats between 2020 and 2024, despite the fact that Democrats did worse overall. Meanwhile, people who were least politically engaged swung enormously against Democrats. They're a group that Biden either narrowly won or narrowly lost 4 years ago, but this time they voted for Trump by double digits. And I think this is just analytically important. People have a lot to complain about how the mainstream media covered things. But I think it's important to note that people who watch the news most actually became more democratic. And the problem was basically this large group of people who really don't follow the news at all becoming more conservative. The second major finding is that Republicans now do better when more people vote. Under the prior conventional wisdom, the key to a GOP victory was an energized base of conservatives and moderates, a depressed turnout by everyone else, and not so anymore. The reality is, if all registered voters had turned out, then Donald Trump would have won the popular vote by 5 points instead of 1.7. So I think that we need to turn up the temperature and mobilize everyone's strategy would have made things worse. Of course, that's good. Old-fashioned Democrat elitism is a tough nut to crack. This was an odd brag, but an amusing anecdote. Sorry, whatever. One of my favorite stats on this is something that Nate Cohn put out a couple of years ago. Working class white voters who've read a book in the last year are much more democratic than working class white voters who haven't. The third major finding is non-white flight from the Democrat Party. MAGA's 2024 comeback didn't occur via juicing the turnout among white voters, but the mass migration of minorities from the Dems. Because if we look at 2016 to 2024 trends by race and ideology, you'll see the clear story where the white voters really didn't shift at all. Camel Toe did exactly as well as Hillary did among white conservatives, white liberals, and white moderates. But if you look among Hispanic and Asian voters, you see the enormous double digits decline. To highlight one example, in 2016, Democrats got 81% of Hispanic moderates. Fast forward to 2024, Democrats only got 57% of Hispanic moderates, which is really very similar to the 51% that Harris got among white moderates. You know, white people only really started to polarize heavily on ideologies in the 90s. Now, non-white voters are starting to polarize on ideology the same way that white voters did. If you look at the African Americans, they didn't swing nearly as much, but our polling before the camel toe switchover, black voters were poised to swing 7 to 8 percentage points against us. As to whether this is inevitable, I would say that to some degree, getting 94% of any ethnic group is unsustainable. But I think the losses that we're seeing among non-white voters and migrants is sympathetic of this broader ideological polarization that Democrats are suffering from. It also casts doubt on the Democrats' strategy of focusing so strongly on ideology. Additionally, the Democrats realize they're losing the young male vote, but they still don't have a clue how to remedy the problem. Here's the key message Trump administration must heed. The future of MAGA will rise or fall on the cost of living issues like Doge, Gaza, Ukraine, Greenland, Canada, and the rest matter on the periphery. But this is politics. You got to keep that main thing the main thing. As for now, Democrats will attack Trump. Blue Rose Research recommends focusing on the economy, Elon Musk, and the oligarch bashing. Trump's approval rating has dropped since he took office. His ratings on his handling of the economy, which historically was a strong suit for him, have dropped the most, and his handling of the cost of living has also gone down quite a bit. And Elon Musk has become much more unpopular and is now most unpopular member of his administration by a good deal. Trump and Elon have really spent the first part of their term driving into the biggest weaknesses of the Republican Party. Namely, they're trying to pass tax cuts for billionaires. They're cutting essential services and causing chaos for regular people left and right while trying to slash social safety net programs. It's Paul Ryanism on steroids. I think we have a real opportunity to return to the politics of 2012 in terms of vigorously opposing these very unpopular economic changes that Trump is pushing through. Give Camel Toe 2 knuckles up. Jeez, Lord. They're just not quite getting it. Well, this next one I found very, very interesting because we talked a little bit about this judge yesterday. The new dirt on Judge Bosenberg, or whatever his name is, don't really care. He's a real pain in the ass. The district court judge who recently blocked Donald Trump's efforts to deport illegal alien gang members attended a suspiciously partisan legal conference just months before his ruling, according to a judicial ethics report. What Judge Boasberg, who serves on the D.C. District Court, participated in what appears to be nothing more than a Democrat strategy session masquerading as a legal conference in Sun Valley, Idaho. The conference's agenda items, Judges in a Democracy and State of Democracy, sound eerily similar to Democrats' tiresome 2024 campaign rhetoric about saving democracy, which, of course, has become the justification for using the courts to obstruct Trump's agenda. Now, his dictates. Called a privately funded seminar disclosure report, the document discloses that Boasberg was in attendance but offers no details of whether Boasberg was paid for his attendance or travel or what the remuneration was, reports Just the News. The outlet was alerted to the conference and Boasberg's attendance by a retired Democrat-appointed judge who was concerned the July 2024 conference's focuses on judges' roles in a democracy was too close to a political party's theme for comfort. Overseen by the Administrative Office of the U.S. Courts, the ethical rules governing federal judges require that a private entity who issues an invitation to a federal judge to attend an educational program as a speaker, panelist, or attendee and offers to pay for or reimburse that judge in excess of $480 must disclose financial and programmatic information. The rules do not require specific accounting for each judge or even how much was paid to judges at all. It is possible that his payment was merely reimbursement for expenses, but Boasberg did not respond to a request for comment from Just the News. The entire arrangement reeks of the same swamp politics that President Trump has been fighting since day one. Is it any play the video? Oh, I will. The entire arrangement reeks of the same swamp politics that President Trump has been fighting since day one. Is it any surprise that after rubbing elbows with fellow liberals at this partisan powwow, Judge Boasberg decided to obstruct Trump's efforts to remove dangerous gang members from our streets? This is exactly why Americans have lost faith in our judicial system. Unelected judges attending partisan conferences, then making decisions based on partisan biases, not constitutionality. The conference was part of Rodell's Institute Judicial Fellowship, and each attending judge, including Boasberg, was a first-year fellow, according to the Institute's website. Notably, Rodell receives funding from the same foundations that frequently bankroll the anti-Trump organizations, programs, and publications. Additionally, the Institute's faculty advisors, 20 in total, are overwhelmingly outspoken Trump critics or who have opposed his policies. The Rodell Institute Board of Directors is stacked up with Trump critics, including Ian Solomon, co-founders Bill and Don Budinger, and have deep ties to Democrat organizations and candidates, with Don opposing Arizona's immigration enforcement efforts and backing Democrat state Senate candidates. Former Montana Governor Steve Bullock was under consideration for Camel Toe's cabinet, while former Arizona legislator Heath Carter abandoned the GOP and endorsed Democrats like Katie Hobbs. James Woodson co-chaired a report lamenting political disinformation in 2016, and former Washington Attorney General Rob McKenna has openly attacked Trump, calling him a demagogue and dismissing his legal arguments as flimsy. Maybe next time Judge Boasberg can hold his strategy session somewhere less obvious than a millionaire's playground. But then again, the left has never been particularly good at hiding its contempt for Trump or for the rule of law. And now just a gentle reminder.
Democracy is a form of government based upon the principle of majority rule, period. End of discussion. Now, that's not very complicated. Majority rule. It's easy to understand, easy to sell to the masses, and I might add, deadly. For example, what would you call a lynch mob? That's majority rule. There's only one dissenting vote, and he's at the end of the rope. Now, that's pure democracy in action. But wait a minute, you say. The majority should rule, yes, but not to the extent of destroying the rights of the minority. And now, ladies and gentlemen, we are no longer describing a democracy. We are speaking of a republic. A republic is a limited democracy. It's a form of government based upon the principle of limited majority rule. Limited so that the minority, even a minority of one, can be protected against the whims and passions of the majority. And how do you protect the minority from the majority? You write down a set of rules on a piece of paper. You say, this we can do, that we cannot. At the top of the paper, you write the word Constitution. And then everyone agrees to follow the rules no matter what the temptation. And when you're finished, you've created a constitutional republic.
Damn, could not have said it any better. Well, Ninth Circuit leftists triggered when judge uses gun to show how clueless their anti-gun decision is. California's Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals, which ruled that magazines aren't essential parts of guns and therefore not protected by Second Amendment, just systematically taken apart by a dissenting judge. But the way he did it has triggered his leftist colleagues. Judge Lawrence Van Dyke, named to the federal bench by Donald Trump in number 45, created a video showing how the Duncan v. Bonta decision limiting magazine capacity to 10 bullets was not only unconstitutional but illogical. The judge writing the majority opinion called the video wildly improper, but it's fabulous and shows the 7-person anti-gun majority for what they are, fictitious and unthinking black-robed droids. His video linked to his written dissent shows he be-robed Reno-based judge stripping down 2 guns, a Sig Sauer P320 for self-defense and another handgun he uses for shooting competitions. He stands in front of his credenza over which a decommissioned AK-47 hangs as an AK-47 hangs as an art piece. Judge Van Dyke not only took guns apart, he summarily took apart the arguments of his 7 colleagues, who he reckoned lacked the basic familiarity with firearms to understand the inherent shortcomings and obvious inadmissibility of the test that California was proposing. That was one of my favorite lines from the judge's 18-minute video. It is great demonstrative calling someone stupid without name-calling. His colleagues seem to get the message, however.
Hi, I'm Judge Van Dyke, and welcome to my chambers. I'm making this video as part of my opinion in the Duncan v. Bonta case. In this case, the state of California made the argument, which the majority has now accepted, that a magazine holding more than 10 rounds is just an accessory, not an arm protected by the Second Amendment's right of the people to keep and bear arms. I think anyone with a basic familiarity with firearms could show you that this attempted distinction is simply inconsistent with reality. I alluded to this during oral argument when I asked California's counsel about the balance of the test that it proposed for what qualifies as an arm protected by the Second Amendment. Let's go to that exchange now.
Magazine and
Can I ask you a question about that? Because
yes, Your Honor.
So the way you're treating magazines, it seems like you could use the same sort of rationale as between a non-semi-automatic firearm, say a lever action or a bolt action or a revolver type action, and a semi-automatic firearm. So I'm trying to figure out if you're saying, well, what we do is we say, have people ever banned particularly dangerous rounds? And now we're saying large capacity magazines are particularly dangerous. Why couldn't that same reasoning be used to ban semi-automatic firearms altogether? To say, because I mean, think about it, like during the Revolutionary War, if the United States had had semi-automatic firearms that only held 5 to 10 rounds, it'd have been about 10 minutes and it would have been over, right? As against muskets. So clearly, the semi-automatic mechanism is way, 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 way more particularly dangerous than the difference, the delta between a 10-round magazine and a 15-round magazine. So why does your reasoning not mean that, if this reasoning works, why does your reasoning not mean that a state could just ban the semi-automatic firearms altogether?
So if we're just start talking, Your Honor, about this initial sort of textual question, I think if you're dealing with semi-automatic, that would fit the definition of an arm.
No, but that semi-automatic could be a revolver. Like it could be, I mean, just like that high capacity magazine could be a lower capacity magazine.
Right, Your Honor. So I think that would fit the definition of arm, and then you'd move on to the other aspects of the Bruin analysis. At stage 1, is a particular weapon that's being addressed by the law.
This lisp is killing me.
In the tradition of dangerous and unusual, is it in common use for self-defense? And we think Heller is clear that has to consider the character as well as the numbers.
I'm not understanding I think I'm missing your response to my, it seems to me that just as you could say, are you saying that yes, so it would be an arm under, you're not conceding that it would be an arm under stage 1. So why are you saying it wouldn't be an arm, but the semi-automatic versus revolver, say, distinction is something that we're stuck with? I mean, you would agree that you can't ban the automatic mechanism.
Well, an automatic mechanism, I think that you can ban. I think the Supreme Court has recognized
No,
that
the
as
automatic
similar.
mechanism is a term that semi-autos and full autos use an automatic mechanism.
Sure, Your Honor. I'm sorry for the
Yeah.
confusion. No, I don't think that we could ban all semi-automatic weapons. I think Heller makes that clear. The point I was just making is, with respect to accessories, I think we have a difference of opinion where my friends suggest any accessory that is somehow helpful to armed
So that's
self-defense.
important, because your argument turns on whether you can characterize accessory. So you would say that the revolver versus semi-automatic is not an accessory, but that a magazine is this accessory. So what would you think about like a red dot sight, electro-optics, which many firearms are going to electronic optics nowadays. They're obviously an accessory because you could have iron sights. Could you ban those?
Well, so Your Honor, I'm not intimately familiar with that, and I do want to answer this question and make sure that I save time for rebuttal. I think that the question at the outset would be, is that, if it's an accessory, is it within the Teixeira principle that it's necessary to the realization of the right to self-defense? And you'd have to build a record and analyze it in that case.
So, counsel, you're saying...
Now, from this exchange, it became clear to me that many, including both California's counsel and my colleagues in the majority in this case, lack the basic familiarity with firearms to understand the inherent shortcomings and obvious inadmissibility of the test that California was proposing, and which the majority in this case has now adopted. I originally planned to explain all of this in writing, in my opinion, and why the argument doesn't make sense, but it occurred to me that in this instance, showing is much more effective than telling. As the old saying goes, a picture is sometimes worth 1,000 words, and here I hope you will agree that a video is at least worth that much. And I suppose at this point in the video is as good a time as any to apologize for any shortcomings of the video. This is the first video like this that I've ever made, and in our digital age, I fear that people have become accustomed to a production quality that I'm sure that I fall far short of. But I hope and expect, that regardless of any such flaws,
He's a
this video
boomer.
will still powerfully serve the purpose for which I've made it. I also want to emphasize that, for safety purposes, I have rendered inoperable all the guns and gun parts that I use to demonstrate today. And finally, as an appellate body, it's obviously not our role to make factual determinations, so I share this not to supplement the factual record that we're using to decide this case. Instead, I share this because a rudimentary understanding of how guns are made, sold, used, and commonly modified makes obvious why California's proposed test and the one my colleagues are adopting today simply does not work. I'm sure I could explain all of this in writing without being accused of improper fact-finding, but it's obviously much more effective to simply show you. So let's do that now. Welcome back. To demonstrate, I'm going to start with this SIG P320 that's basically in its stock configuration. That is, this gun is basically in the same configuration it would come to you from the manufacturer and be sold to you at a retailer. This is one of the most popular handguns currently on the market in the United States. And so I'm going to use this to point out some of the essential parts of a handgun. These same parts would exist on pretty much every handgun, at least of this semi-automatic type. So let me start by pointing out a few of them. This one comes with a standard 21 round magazine. Comes from factory just like that. You can buy a similar version that comes with a 17 round magazine that fits flush. And so it comes with 21 or 17 round magazine. It has a standard full-size grip. It has a factory trigger, which has a pull weight of about 7 pounds or so. Has front and rear iron sights that are used to aim the firearm. It has this little takedown lever, which is small, and you may have trouble seeing it, but we're going to talk about that some later. And that's what you use to remove the slide and disassemble the firearm. And the entire gun is designed around the automatic cycling mechanism. That is, when you pull the trigger and fire a round, right when that happens, it automatically will rack the slide back, eject the round, the spent cartridge out of the gun. It will grab a new round out of the magazine, put that round into the chamber, into the barrel, and it'll be ready to fire another round the next time you pull the trigger. So this is a semi-automatic firearm. Now, I want to use this handgun to illustrate first California and the majority's argument as applied to this obviously typical and very common handgun, and then I want to show you that the same argument would apply to other parts of the firearm and to this firearm as a whole. Now, as a reminder, California's argument, which the majority's adopted here, is that a magazine that holds more than 10 rounds is not an arm protected by the Second Amendment. So this 21 round magazine that comes from the factory or a 17 round magazine is not an arm protected by the Second Amendment. Now, California acknowledges that a magazine is necessary to make the firearm function, but they argue that because you can replace the standard magazine with one that holds fewer rounds, 10 rounds or less, then these higher capacity magazines are not an arm and thus wholly unprotected by the Second Amendment. Now, the problem with California's argument is that, as I pointed out in oral argument, the exact same argument would apply to essentially every part on this firearm, which would mean that essentially nothing on this firearm would be protected by the Second Amendment. Allow me to illustrate that using this firearm. Now, in oral argument, I asked California's counsel if their argument meant that the sights on this firearm are not protected by the Second Amendment. And part of the reason I'm making this video is because it didn't appear that counsel understood what I was asking. So take a look again at this handgun. What you see on here are iron sights. You have a front and a rear iron sight. And the way that you fire this handgun, the way you aim it, is you take and you line up these two sights and you line them up on what you want to shoot at. And that's how you hit what you're aiming at with this firearm. These are iron sights. They're probably the most common sighting system for a handgun. But all you have to do on this particular handgun to change out the sights is remove two screws in this slide right here, and the back sight comes off. And when you do that, you can put the two screws back into a red dot optic, and now you will have a firearm that, instead of having iron sights, would have a red dot optic. Let me illustrate that by just taking a slide where I've already installed the red dot optic, and here you go. See, so now you have this back iron sight's been taken off, and here's a red dot optic. Now, in the hands of an experienced shooter, this red dot optic allows you to shoot the firearm more quickly, to get on target more quickly, to hit what you're aiming at, be more accurate. And so it's obviously much more dangerous if it's being used for an unlawful or wrong purpose. But if it's being used for a lawful purpose, then it makes the firearm better for that intended purpose. So this firearm would be better for self-defense or competition, recreational shooting, or hunting. And indeed, my own self-defense handgun, which this is another P320 that's been configured slightly differently, has a red dot optic precisely because it makes the firearm better for its intended purpose, that is self-defense. It makes it more accurate more quickly and shoot more quickly. Now, so in that sense, this red dot optic is just like this magazine. It makes the firearm more dangerous when it's misused, but it also makes the firearm work better for its intended purpose when it's used properly. Well, you may think that's pretty intuitive about the sighting system for a firearm, but the same thing is true about basically every part of this gun. Let's take a look at a part that's maybe a little less intuitive, which is that takedown lever that I talked about earlier. This little piece here, it's necessary for the operation of the firearm. It's a tiny little piece that you need to have for the firearm. And so you would think, well, since it's necessary, then it must be an arm protected by the Second Amendment. But not under California's logic in this case. See, you can replace this factory takedown lever with a different factory takedown lever. This one's called a gas pedal. And when you do that, you replace it, you put the slide back on. Now the firearm is a lot more controllable under recoil. You can, just like with the red dot sight, you can do faster follow-up shots. You can aim the gun more quickly, and you can control it better. So again, as with the red dot sight, as with the higher capacity magazine, this particular takedown lever makes the gun more dangerous when it's misused, but also makes the gun more effective for its intended purpose when it's used properly. So under California's logic, because this is an accessory, this little takedown lever, it could be replaced with a worse part. This little takedown lever is not protected. It's not part of the arm protected by the Second Amendment. Well, you might ask yourself, well, what about the grip? Like, you think this grip, certainly it must be part of the arm. I mean, it seems like that's a pretty key part of a firearm, is the grip of a pistol. Well, actually, under the majority's argument, it would not be protected. And the reason is, here's a bunch of grips that I've accumulated over the years. I'm just going to pull a couple out here. This is a nice small grip, a nice small light grip. This is a big heavy grip. So what you can do on this firearm is you can remove the slide, remove that takedown lever, take what's called the fire control unit out of the firearm. This is actually the firearm under the ATF's definition. And you can take this fire control lever and you can put it inside this smaller grip. And you could use this grip for, say, self-defense purposes, because it's very concealable, it's light, it's easy to carry. And indeed, you'll see that's pretty much the type of grip that I have on my
Good morning, East Coast Cowboy.
And you
Be
can take
sexist
this
cowboy.
much heavier grip
Good to see you.
with aggressive stippling on it and with a flared mag well, and you could put this fire control unit in there, put the takedown lever on, and then you put the slide back on, and now you have a firearm that is much better at being able to take quick follow-up shots, hit what you're aiming at. And so this grip, all of these grips under the majority in California's logic could be banned because if they were misused, they would make the firearm more dangerous, and you could put a different type of grip on if you wanted to. So you might ask yourself, well, what part of this pistol would be protected as an arm under the majority's logic? Well, I suppose California would eventually be forced to say, well, this part, the FCU, I guess, is the arm protected by the Second Amendment. Every other part that you added, as I've just shown you, every other part that you added could easily be characterized, just like the magazine, as an accessory that you add to the firearm, and therefore could be banned under the Second Amendment. But not so fast. Even this part, the FCU, the core basic part of the firearm, could be banned under the majority's rationale. And the reason is, let me show you another FCU. This is the FCU for my competition gun. It has a really nice trigger, a nice light, crisp trigger, and has some parts replaced in here. It makes for a really nice trigger. You can upgrade the trigger to make it much nicer. And so because of that, under the majority's logic, you could even ban this FCU, or at least most of it, as simply an accessory, and now protected by the Second Amendment. Now, most of what I've shown you could, I suppose, be conceptualized as upgrades. You say, well, that's an upgraded trigger, and that's an upgraded takedown lever, and that's an upgraded grip. But the majority's logic works both ways. I've just shown you how you could easily improve the sights, how you could easily improve the takedown lever, you can improve the grip and the trigger, you could do the same thing with the barrel. But you could easily downgrade all of these factory parts of the handgun to make the firearm less accurate and slower. You could put in worse than factory trigger. You could require worse sights than what it comes with from the factory. You could require a grip be put on that hurts the speed and accuracy. Indeed, this type of downgrade is precisely what the majority is actually requiring in this case. As we mentioned earlier, this comes from the factory with a 21-round magazine, or it comes with a 17-round magazine in a slightly different configuration. But the majority is requiring that these factory standard parts be replaced with worse than factory parts, a 10-round magazine. So when we take everything off that the majority might call it accessory, what we're left with at best is this fire control unit. And as I've explained, even that could be dumbed down so that much of this fire control unit would be an accessory under California's argument. And of course, you can't shoot this, right? It's inoperable. You need all the other accessories that I've been describing in order to make this work as a firearm. But of course, also, each of these other pieces, just like this magazine, could in some way be considered an accessory, since they could be replaced with a different part that would be less useful and make the gun less dangerous if misused. And that could be said for pretty much every single part of this handgun. And the same problem with the majority's argument applies to other aspects of the firearm that are less easily shown in the video, including fundamental aspects of how this firearm operates. At oral argument, I asked California's counsel why California couldn't ban the automatic cycling mechanism altogether under the California's argument. And again, I don't think he understood what I was talking about. Well, this handgun uses that mechanism. This uses the automatic cycling mechanism. And this semi-automatic auto-loading operation is the most popular mechanism that exists today and is used for self-defense. But other mechanisms exist for handguns, including, probably most obviously, the revolver mechanism. Here's a revolver. Think of the 6-shooter from the old Western movies, right? You can have a revolver which is not automatic, or you could have, and there's different types of revolvers. There's single shots, there's double actions. You could have the lever action, you could have a pump action, you could have a single shot break action, which only has one round. You have to open it up and manually take the round out and put another in. And under California's argument, because any of these single types of mechanisms are not essential to make this handgun work, and thus, or make a handgun work, and thus are not an arm under the Second Amendment, California could ban the whole semi-automatic mechanism altogether, thereby effectively banning semi-automatic handguns altogether, forcing everyone to use revolvers or single-shot handguns or worse. and of course with bad sights, crazy heavy trigger pulls, a terrible grip. You get the point. Ultimately, California's argument, which the majority has unwisely adopted here, is based on the unstated assumption that there's some basic, I guess, unadorned, without any accessories firearm that would be protected as an arm under the text of the Second Amendment, but everything else is merely an unprotected accessory that's been added to that firearm that's unprotected. And I hope you can tell from this video that that idea is simply unrealistic. It could never be applied in real life. Like many of this court's ideas about the Second Amendment, it stems from a basic misunderstanding of how firearms work, combined with a highly unrealistic idea of how such a rule would be administered in real life. Ultimately, the only rule that makes sense and comports with reality and the text of the Constitution is that the entire handgun here, including the grip, this takedown lever, the slide and barrel, the sighting system, and this magazine are all part of the arm within the meaning of the Second Amendment. Thank you for watching.
Nice. Nice. That right there. Such a good explanation. The judge writing the majority opinion didn't like him showboating like this, but we do. She claimed that he was, in essence, acting as a fact witness in this case, which, when you're fact-finding, as the gun grabbers were, can be worrisome. Van Dyke, however, anticipated the complaint, saying, as an appellate body, it's obviously not our role to make factual determinations, so I share this not as a supplement to the factual record that we're using to decide this case. Instead, I share this because a rudimentary understanding of how guns are made, sold, used, and commonly modified makes obvious why California's proposed tests, and the one my colleagues are adopting today, simply does not work. While taking apart those weapons, he showed all the parts that can be switched out, even the shooting mechanism. Therefore, all parts are accessories. Under that logic, all handgun parts, even revolvers, in his opinion, could be outlawed because parts are accessories just like magazines. California's argument, which the majority adopted here, he explained, is that a magazine that holds more than 10 rounds is not an arm protected by the Second Amendment. So this 21-round magazine that comes from the factory, or a 17-round magazine, is not an arm protected by the Second Amendment. He continued with the illogic of California's law limiting gun users to 10 bullets per magazine, and we suspect that's part of the lawfare plan. Now, before you just write the judge off as some hick who likes to shoot guns and with the good old boys, be forewarned, Van Dyke graduated magna cum laude from Harvard Law, where he was an editor of the Harvard Law Review. His bio also states he was a double major in engineering and theology and holds a master's degree in engineering management. Oh, and he clerked for a conservative heavyweight Judge Janice Rogers Brown on the D.C. Circuit. This case is going to the Supreme Court and should be red-carded immediately, especially when California's Attorney General Rob Bonta has to explain why the device containing more than 10 bullets that makes guns go bang isn't covered under the Second Amendment. I'd like to be in the courtroom for oral arguments just to watch Clarence Thomas's face reacting to this nuttery. Thank you, Victoria Taft. She is an awesome writer. That's not the truth. Nobody's grabbing my rocks. Wait. Well, Storm. And they use the puckle gun. Ah, yes. Puckle gun. Oh my gosh. But we've got one more quick thing to show you guys, and then I'm going to kick you all over to a wonderful, wonderful stream this morning. So be ready for it. The real Epstein files are coming. Here's what to know. The Trump administration has proven again what promises made are promises kept after successfully releasing over 80,000 pages of files connected to the assassination of John F. Kennedy on March 18th. The focus has now shifted to perhaps what should be even more explosive collection of documents, the Jeffrey Epstein files. And as you know, there was a huge document dump of files related to Jeff Epstein case last month that was, to say the least, underwhelming. Part of the problem, it turns out, was that rogue officials out of the Southern District of New York office had withheld documents from the Department of Justice. So where's the good stuff? Well, according to a report from Vanity Fair, it should be coming soon. It's the FBI's flagship field office with more than 1,000 agents and another 1,000 or so civilian employees. And right now, multiple sources with knowledge of the matter say that one priority of the Bureau's New York field office is taking precedent over all the others. the review and redaction of some sensitive information in the Jeffrey Epstein case files to prepare for possible publication. It's literally all hands on deck. With one familiar source, the matter tells me adding the dozens and dozens of agents are working around the clock on the case instead of on their regular duties. I even saw an agent walking in with a pillow, source added. Attorney General Pam Bondi appeared on Mario's Sunday Morning Futures, spoke of this massive undertaking. They pressed Bondi with the release of files related to Jeffrey Epstein, acknowledging the complexity of handling such sensitive material. She noted, I recognize that when you're dealing with children, it takes much more time. You've got to ensure that what you're sending out publicly is not revealing any personal information. She then asked Bondi whether more details would be forthcoming. And Bondi confirmed the updates were on the horizon, stated, you're absolutely right, Maria. You know, tens of thousands of pages of documents and hundreds of victims of Jeffrey Epstein. Baratomo reacted with a stunned, wow. Bondi assured viewers that the federal authorities were making progress. The FBI, they have been working around the clock at my directive and FBI Director Kash Patel's directive. Adding that FBI Deputy Director Dan Bongino is also involved. Dan Bongino is there, who is the greatest asset for all of us here at the FBI as well. Bondi reiterated the need to safeguard victims while ensuring transparency. We have to protect their identity, their personal information to make sure they're safe, she said. But other than that, we are releasing all of these documents as soon as we can get them redacted to protect the victims of all those horrific crimes he has committed. Baratomo responded, understood. Rest assured, transparency is coming, everyone. It's going to be insane. Jeremy has a cannon. I used to have a tabletop cannon. I miss it. It was fun. Everyone, it has come to the end of the day, the end of the stream. It is coming really close. And there's only one thing that really, really matters. And that is that you remember to be kind to one another. Just be really kind to one another. You'll be surprised how good things go.
Whatever you think of Trump, his economic plan makes complete sense. The US has 36 trillion in debt. In 2025, they will spend 6 trillion, but will only collect 4 trillion in revenue. So they need to borrow 2 trillion, and this will increase their debt to 38 trillion. Trump's economic plan is based on 3 levers. Number 1, cut expenses by 1 trillion, which is Doge, Elon Musk. He's targeting waste and fraud, like social security payments for people who are 150 years old. That is just fraud. 2, increasing revenue by 1 to 2 trillion through, number 1, tariffs. They will increase tariffs from 50 billion to 500 billion target.
And with that, I will see you guys tomorrow.
Will say, but
bless your heart. I thought I was the only mentally challenged one here.
Get it, yeah, oh yeah. Early morning, rise and shine. Coffee's brewing, feeling fine. News is out and on the air. Shizzy whiz nuts wild, but we don't care. Morning, Whiz and Coffee. Talk the news, he's a tease. Laugh it off, we're on the go. Shizzy whiz nuts, start the show. Let's go. Get it, yeah, oh yeah. Headlines spinning in the breeze. Stupid jokes, he's such a tease. Sip the Java, wear a smile. Pants are off, but stay a while. Morning, Whiz and Coffee. Talk the news, he's a tease. Laugh it off, we're on the go. Shizzy whiz, let's start the show. Let's go. Get it, yeah, oh yeah. Headlines spinning in the breeze. Stupid jokes, he's such a tease. Sip the Java, wear a smile. Pants are off, but stay a while. Morning, Whiz and Coffee. Talk the news, he's a tease. Laugh it off, we're on the go. Shizzy whiz, let's start the show. Let's go. Get it, yeah, oh yeah. Serious is overrated. Every day we're caffeinated. Talk the town, but in a jest. Morning Whiz is always best. time to run. Morning show's a load of fun. Grab your mug, don't spill a drop. Laugh your ass off till you pop. Clock is ticking, time to run. Morning show's a load of fun. Grab your mug, don't spill a drop. Laugh your ass off till you pop.
Oh my god, Shizzy breaks Larry. Shizzy broke Larry.
Oh, by the way, I'm sending